Imagine losing your best friend forever, and just when you're drowning in grief, you start seeing terrifying visions. Visions of a man from your past who shouldn't even be there. Is it trauma? Or has something supernatural started haunting her? So friends, today's story begins with a girl named Aubrey Parker who attends the funeral of her closest friend, Grace. Grace's death has left her completely shattered because the two of them had shared countless beautiful memories together. But soon, Aubrey starts experiencing strange and disturbing visions. In those visions, she suddenly sees the man with whom she once shared an intimate moment by the ocean. And now, these visions keep returning, one after another, driving her deeper into confusion and fear. Troubled, Aubrey decides to talk with Grace's husband, Mark, and then prepares to leave. But just as she is stepping away, a few people suddenly surround her, staring at her in an unnervingly strange way. Aubrey, however, ignores them and walks off. On her way, Aubrey meets Alice, Grace's distant cousin. Alice knew how close Aubrey and Grace truly were, so she hints at something mysterious, saying that before dying, Grace must have left something behind specifically for Aubrey, something only Aubrey would be able to understand. But Aubrey can't make sense of any of it yet, so she goes straight to Grace's restaurant, lost in her memories. At the gate, Aubrey uses a stick to knock down a key that was hanging inside. Picking it up, she unlocks the restaurant and goes in. Inside, Grace's presence overwhelms her even more. Every corner brings back the moments they had spent together. Sitting there, she pours herself a drink and begins speaking into the air, as if Grace were still right there, sitting beside her. Later, Aubrey sprinkles food into the fish tank and then notices a telescope placed nearby. To her amusement, she realizes that Grace had set it up facing a neighbor's apartment window. It makes Aubrey smile, because Grace always loved spying on her neighbors. Afterward, Aubrey heads to Grace's apartment. Lying on Grace's bed, she can't stop thinking about her. That's when her eyes fall on a radio placed on the table, from which faint voices seem to be coming. It sounds almost as though someone is trying to speak with her through it. Curious, Aubrey picks up the microphone and tries to respond to the man on the other side, but the voice is still unclear. Irritated, she switches off the light and tries to sleep. But even then, she feels as if Grace is lying right beside her in the bed. Disturbed, Aubrey shifts to the couch and calls her mother. She hadn't visited her in a long time, so her mother warmly invites her to come. But inside Grace's room, the phone signals keep breaking, forcing Aubrey to end the call. At that moment, her thoughts drift back to that man, Edward. In her vision, she sees Edward sitting in the same room. She nervously approaches and calls his name, but when Edward turns toward her, Aubrey is horrified. His face has a massive hole in it, making him look absolutely terrifying. And then she suddenly wakes up. It was just a nightmare. Getting up, Aubrey notices that the heater in the house has stopped working for some unknown reason. She looks outside and sees snow falling. But the strangest part is, there's no one in sight. The city, which was usually full of life, looks completely empty. Off in the distance, smoke rises from the woods. Aubrey can't understand what's going on. She tries turning on the TV, but it doesn't work either. She assumes maybe the bad weather has knocked out the power in the whole city. But then she realizes, even her phone isn't working anymore. That really unsettles her. So she quickly puts on a jacket and steps outside. From the gate of the restaurant, she cautiously looks around, trying to understand the strange situation. At first, everything seems normal. But the moment she closes the restaurant door behind her, suddenly a terrified man starts banging on the gate, as if desperately trying to warn her to escape. The next moment, the man runs off. Aubrey, shocked, decides to follow him, but after chasing him for a short distance, he suddenly vanishes. Then she notices thick black smoke billowing out from two nearby houses. On the road, several cars lie in wreckage, completely destroyed, and around them, large pools of blood. Seeing all this, Aubrey is completely bewildered. But before she can even process it, suddenly her eyes. In front of Aubrey suddenly appears a horrifying demon, a monstrous creature that had already slaughtered countless people. Terrified at the sight, Aubrey runs back toward the restaurant. A few people hiding inside a nearby house watch her desperately sprinting past. Somehow, she manages to slip inside the restaurant. But the monster doesn't give up. It follows her, standing menacingly right outside. Shaking with fear, Aubrey crouches behind a table, waiting, hoping it would leave. But instead, the beast begins to attack the gate, pounding against it again and again, trying to break inside. Aubrey trembles in terror. Suddenly, she hears a voice coming from the radio on the table. Someone on the other end is speaking to her, and shockingly, this stranger already knows Aubrey's name. He tells her to close her eyes, point the radio toward the gate, and trust him if she wants to survive. Scared but desperate, Aubrey does as instructed. But since she's too far from the gate, the melody the man plays through the signal doesn't reach the demon, so he urges her to move closer. Shaking, Aubrey approaches the gate, eyes still tightly shut. All around her, the haunting sound of that strange melody fills the air. Then, it works. The demon screeches and flees. Aubrey collapses onto her knees, sobbing with relief. But the man warns her. It's not over yet. the danger isn't completely gone. He advises her to lock herself in a room upstairs for safety. Without asking questions, Aubrey hurries up, bolts the door, and then begins questioning him. Who exactly was he, and how did he know so much about her? The man introduces himself as a friend of Grace. He explains that Grace, along with him and a few others, had discovered something extremely dangerous. Grace had even hidden a part of it in her own home, knowing that one day Aubrey would come here and, in the midst of trouble, would need his help. Aubrey struggles to understand any of this, so she asks him, how did he drive the monster away? He reveals the secret. There exists a very special melody that Grace and his group had uncovered. With it, they could open pathways between worlds. The creature Aubrey saw had entered Earth through one of those pathways, and the same melody was used to repel it. Just then, Aubrey looks out the window and sees more people fleeing from the monster. She quickly tells the man about them, but he coldly replies that he can't help those people. All he can do is warn Aubrey to stay silent. Helpless, Aubrey hides and quietly cries. The man too goes silent. In despair, Aubrey begins to wonder if she's already dead, and all of this is happening to her in hell. But then her eyes fall on an envelope nearby, with her name written on it in Grace's handwriting. She opens it, and inside finds a radio cassette along with a note. On the note, Grace had written, "This cassette will save the world." Aubrey plays the cassette. Grace's voice fills the room, explaining that she and her group had worked with radio signals to uncover strange, interlinked melodies. Melodies capable of opening gates to other worlds. They had discovered several, but melody number 7 was missing. No matter how hard Grace searched, she could never find it. But Grace had always feared, if that melody ever fell into the wrong hands, it could change the entire fate of humanity. So, to prevent disaster, she hid the melodies in different places, spots she and Aubrey used to visit together. The tape ends with one of those eerie melodies playing. Shockingly, Aubrey suddenly finds herself standing in a forest, the same demon's roars echoing nearby. Panicked, she picks up a stone for protection, but before she can act, the melody cuts off, and instantly, she's pulled back into Grace's house. In the process, she accidentally breaks a map hanging on the wall. Behind it, she discovers a hidden basement that Grace had built. Inside are countless diaries. Aubrey starts reading through the notes, trying to understand. Then, once again, the stranger speaks to her. This time, he finally tells her his name, Alfred. He warns Aubrey that once she finds the melodies, she must use them with extreme care, for they hold powers that could. The truth was terrifying because of someone's actions. That demon had entered this world. And Alfred warned Aubrey, if there was even the slightest mistake, another doorway could open, unleashing more terrifying creatures that could wipe out humanity completely. By now, more than half of humanity was already dead. The few who survived were hiding in fear, trapped inside their homes. Alfred explained that all he knew about these mysterious melodies was this: a highly advanced species had been sending these signals across different places for centuries. Grace had managed to decode them. Perhaps the purpose of that ancient species was simple: that one day, someone would arrange the melodies in the right order and play them. If done correctly, it might even send the demon back to its own world. For now, Alfred urged Aubrey to complete Grace's mission, but Aubrey was terrified. She didn't want to step outside. Instead, she shut off the radio, stayed inside Grace's house, and began gathering food and supplies to survive. But isolation soon crushed her. Days passed, and the silence turned into torment. Alone, scared, and frustrated, Aubrey even tried to end her own life by hanging herself. But at the last moment, she couldn't go through with it. Lying broken on the bed, she thought about how she could ever find the courage to step outside and fix what was happening. Her mind began to betray her. She saw disturbing hallucinations, like the demon looming right above her. In a panic, she swung her fists at it again and again, only to realize she was punching the wall. A few days later, her supplies finally ran out. The food was gone. The water was nearly finished. Aubrey now faced the ultimate choice: either stay trapped inside and die of hunger, or find the courage to step outside and search for more. Talking to Grace's pet turtle like a madwoman, Aubrey finally convinced herself. She geared up, packed her essentials, took the turtle with her, and carried the radio with extra batteries, her only weapon against the monster. Stepping outside, she passed by the same house where she had once seen someone watching her. But now, the window was empty, just stained with blood. She pressed on and reached a supermarket. Quickly, she began collecting food and water. Then a memory struck her. She and Grace used to shop here often. She went straight to their favorite aisle, and to her shock, she actually found cassette number 3 hidden there. Just as she prepared to leave, her eyes caught a trail of blood. Following it, she discovered a freezer. Inside was the decaying corpse of a man dead for days. Shaken, she hurried out of the store. On the way back, she noticed something strange. A mysterious pole-like structure, one she had never seen before. The demon appeared. Uneasy, she ignored it and kept moving. Ahead, she saw collapsed houses, abandoned cars, and broken roads. But then she heard it. The monster's roar. Terrified, Aubrey ducked behind a car to hide, but her fear overwhelmed her. Losing control, she bolted in panic, dropping her radio in the process. The monster drew closer. Scrambling, she snatched the radio back, darted into a car, and blasted the melody. The beast recoiled and fled, but Aubrey wasn't safe. Another hallucination struck. Suddenly, she was in a cartoonish world, yet even there, the demon was chasing her. She ducked near a car, only to see Edward appear again. His face was still torn, monstrous, making her heart race with dread. The illusion deepened. She felt like she was drowning in an ocean, gigantic demonic hands pulling her deeper and deeper. Then, with a jolt, the vision shattered. Aubrey found herself back in reality, lying under a car. The monster was gone. Exhausted, she gathered her supplies and moved forward. This time to the theater she and Grace used to visit. They always sat in the same seat, and sure enough, hidden beneath it was cassette number 4. But as she stepped outside, her blood froze. Right in front of her was a gigantic glowing monster, towering and radiant, unlike anything she had seen before. Shocked, Aubrey stood frozen, unable to process what she was witnessing. She stayed hidden, staring, waiting for the right moment to escape. Once the coast seemed clear, she moved toward a library. But by the time she reached, night had fallen. The main door wouldn't budge. Desperate, she smashed it open and slipped inside. The darkness inside was suffocating. Using her small glowing light, she slowly made her way through the silent library. But suddenly, her light flickered and died. And when Aubrey managed to switch on another light, right in front of her stood something completely different. A new monster appeared, one that was very different from the previous one. This creature couldn't even see Aubrey, which is why it left without harming her. Still shaken, Aubrey quickly picked up her radio again and continued her search for the next cassette. In a study room, she found a box, and inside it was the 5th cassette. Seeing it, memories of the times she used to lie down with Grace in that very study, reading books together, came flooding back. That night, Grace appeared in Aubrey's dream. She wanted to know if Aubrey had finally moved on from her past, but Aubrey had made a grave mistake in her past, one she could never fully escape from. Grace gently told her, "You'll have to forgive yourself. Accept your mistake, and only then can you truly move forward." Aubrey pondered on these words. Sitting among piles of books, she began playing the cassette tunes, trying to let her mind drift into their world. Deep in focus, she even noticed books floating around her, but she ignored them and stayed immersed in her trance. The music transported her again and again into different imagined places. At first, it felt strange, but soon she started enjoying the experiences. Then, suddenly, she heard strange noises deeper inside the library. Following the sound, she stumbled upon something bizarre. There was a film being shot, titled Starfish. What shocked her even more was that she herself was the lead actress in it. Seeing her other self, Aubrey panicked and quickly hid. That's when she realized the truth. The cassettes were pulling her into alternate realities, showing her different versions of her life. Terrified, she rushed back into her real world, screamed out loud to release the pressure, and then once again tried to calm herself by meditating with the music. Each cassette transported her to new places, but the final one hurled her into the very moment at the beach, when she was about to get intimate with another man. She desperately tried to change what was about to happen, but she couldn't. On the shore, she also saw Edward sitting, looking utterly broken. This time, his face was perfectly normal. Aubrey walked up to Edward, apologized, and the heartbreaking truth surfaced. Edward was actually her fiancé, but Aubrey had betrayed him, sneaking away with another man, and on that beach, she had been unfaithful. When Edward found out, he couldn't bear it. He took a shotgun and ended his own life. That was Aubrey's greatest sin, the wound she could never forget. But now, in this surreal moment, she apologized to Edward and symbolically drowned the man she cheated with into the sea. When her eyes opened again, she was back in the library. For a while, she sat talking to Grace's turtle, and since she had finally accepted her past mistake, she felt lighter better than before. She resumed her journey to find the rest of the tapes. On the way, she encountered another monster. She was about to play the music to drive it away, but then she stopped. This time, she didn't feel fear. And astonishingly, the monster simply left on its own. At dawn, Aubrey returned once more to Grace's grave. Later, she arrived at a radio station, one where she had once worked. On the wall, she found an old photograph of herself with a colleague, and hidden behind that picture was the 6th and final cassette. 2 cassettes she had already recovered from Grace's home, so now the full collection was complete. She carefully arranged them in sequence and began playing the music. When the final tape ended, she tried to contact Alfred, but instead of Alfred, another voice answered. To her horror, the voice told her she had made a terrible mistake. The sequence she played was wrong. Instead of closing the gateway to the other world, she had accidentally opened a new one, allowing more monsters to cross into reality. Aubrey froze in fear. She rushed back to recheck the cassettes and found that each one carried a small label, some marked "Forget," and others marked Forgive. The mysterious boy urged her to follow those labels. But instead, Aubrey abandoned the radio and the cassettes altogether and walked outside, heading straight toward the otherworldly gate. The moment she entered, a violent whirlwind engulfed her. Memories of her moments with Edward flashed vividly in her mind. This meant one thing. Deep down, she still hadn't truly forgiven herself. In truth, this was all the story of Aubrey's mind, her inner world, where the death of her friend. Before all this, Aubrey had betrayed her husband Edward. After discovering her infidelity, Edward shot himself in the face with a shotgun, ending his own life. Since then, every time Aubrey imagined him, she saw his face in a terrifying, monstrous form. That guilt was the reason she distanced herself from Grace and stopped meeting her altogether. But what Aubrey didn't know was that during this time, Grace had been silently fighting cancer. By the time Aubrey found out, Grace had already passed away from the illness. This loss drove Aubrey even deeper into guilt and despair. After Grace's death, she started spending more time at Grace's restaurant, where she found a strange sense of comfort. But eventually, she completely shut herself away from the outside world. She became convinced that monsters roamed outside, waiting to kill her the moment she stepped out. In reality, those monsters were nothing but her own fears, given form by her traumatized mind. Later, when Aubrey finally stopped being afraid, when she chose not to run anymore, those monsters lost their power over her. They appeared, but they could no longer harm her. And when she acknowledged her past mistake and, in her dream, drowned the man she had cheated with, she felt an overwhelming sense of relief, as if she had finally lightened her soul. But even then, her fear never completely left. Eventually, it resurfaced, dragging her back into guilt and forcing her to relive her memories with Edward once more. In truth, the world Aubrey wandered through, the monsters she faced, and the tapes she played, all of it existed only inside her own mind. It was the story of a woman crushed by grief and guilt, trying to forgive herself but never fully able to. So friends, that was the complete story. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to smash that like button right now. It really motivates me to bring you even more spooky and mind-bending recaps. And hey, if you're new here, don't just hit that subscribe button and join our horror-loving family, because I keep bringing such spine-chilling and emotional stories for you all. Also, if you haven't already, check out my recap of another haunting psychological horror. Link in the pinned comment and description. Trust me, you don't want to miss that one. I'll catch you soon with another terrifying story. Till then, stay scared, stay safe, and never stop exploring the unknown.